Hi, my name is Rebecca Zerman. I am the Community Engagement Director at Arkansas Advocates for Children and Families, and I was asked to talk to you about the highs and lows of the 2025 legislative session as it relates to democracy and voting rights. This year was a really harmful year for ballot rights in our state. So in Arkansas, for over 100 years, Arkansans have had the right to put measures on the ballot that impact their lives. That's been on a huge range of topics. Most importantly for kids and families has been a series of minimum wage increases that we've seen. But over the past few years, we've seen more and more attacks on ballot rights from the state legislature because they want to be the ones that decide our laws. But unfortunately, sometimes the state legislature doesn't always vote for the will of Arkansans. Sometimes they vote for the will of special interests, and that's why it's so important for us to have access to the ballot. So I want to explain this in terms of a video game analogy. I don't play video games, but I felt like it was apt because they've really passed laws that make it a game so you can't win. And so in terms of Arkansas ballot measures this year, the laws that have passed have impacted every stage of the ballot measure process. So first, stay with me here, filing the measure. There were several changes to the laws in terms of filing ballot measures this year. We think the most egregious was a new law that makes it so ballot titles have to be written at an 8th grade level under a specific model, the Flesch-Kincaid model, which is actually really tricky to use. It sounds really good, and definitely we should have ballot titles but be as readable as possible. We don't want them to be wonky and not understandable. But unfortunately, things like even the term a amendment to the Arkansas Constitution, that is above an 8th grade reading level. That's like at a 12th grade reading level. So it can be really difficult to meet that requirement. And so that is one really harmful measure that passed in terms of filing the text for what the measure will look like. Because of that 8th grade reading level requirement, the Attorney General's office can now stop ballot measures from moving forward based on that requirement. There's also a new law that allows the Attorney General to kick off measures that he thinks violates the U.S. Constitution, which is also pretty problematic because really it should be the courts that make that determination. And so those are the first couple hurdles that you'll see in the ballot measure process because of these new laws that pass this legislative session. And the next step of the process is signature collection. And so let's assume that your measure got through the Attorney General process and you're going to go out and collect petition signatures. That process has also gotten pretty tricky because of these new laws. So it will be pretty uncomfortable for you when you're going out either collecting signatures or interested in signing a petition. So for instance, one new law requires that either you read a ballot measure title in front of the canvasser, the person collecting signatures, or that person has to read it out loud to you. I don't know how long you feel comfortable with a stranger reading out loud to you, but my comfort level is very short for that. But given ballot measures that have been filed in recent years, that could be up to 8 minutes. It's quite a bit of time. Another new law requires that before you sign, the canvasser is required to tell you, did you know petition fraud is a crime? Yes, people know fraud is a crime. That's a pretty well-known fact. However, me telling you that before I collect your signature can be kind of scary. The strangers throwing out fraud words at you. And so that can intimidate some people from signing because they'll be afraid, if I don't sign this exactly right, will I be committing fraud? So it's pretty a bad law that just passed as well. And so another law that passed requires the canvassers to look at your photo ID to confirm your identity before you sign the petition. So all of these steps add up to a really long signature collection process. And if you think if you're standing out in the Walmart parking lot in the smoldering heat, are you really gonna stand for that whole time? I hope you do if it's an issue that you're interested in. But unfortunately, this process is becoming pretty arduous, and these laws are meant to scare people away from signing. So the next big hurdle that we'll face is in submitting the signatures. So after a ballot measure campaign has collected its signatures, it's time for the deadline to turn in the signatures. There's a couple new hurdles that they'll be facing as well. First off, one really unfortunate law, I think is actually the worst law that passed, is that if a canvasser commits a crime or fraud during the signature collection process, all of the signatures that they collect will be tossed out. That's pretty bad, because one example of breaking a law is I'm a canvasser, I'm collecting signatures, and a bee flies past me, and I had just been reading out the ballot title out loud. I missed a couple words as I was coming back from the bee attack, and someone noticed and reported me to the Secretary of State's office. Technically, you did break the law in that situation. You didn't read a couple words, and now all the signatures, no matter how many could be hundreds of signatures, would be tossed out, and there's nothing that those people that signed can do to get their signature back on. So another problematic law that passed that's in terms of the signature collection process is a new law that makes it so canvassers have to sign several different affidavits, and before there's a new affidavit that signature collectors have to sign, saying that they didn't commit any crimes. And once they submit that affidavit, they can no longer collect signatures after that until the Attorney General or till the Secretary of State's office says the campaign as a whole collected enough signatures to move into what's called a cure period, where you're able to collect some extra signatures if you met a threshold of 70% correct. So what does that mean? Really, that's blocking canvassers from being able to collect additional signatures during that cure period to make sure that they can get on the ballot. So that's also a big problem as well. And so all of these laws combined really make the ballot measure process a game that's really impossible to win for ballot measure campaigns, but also it creates a really difficult process for those voters who want to sign petitions. And so that is all of the lows from the 2025 legislative session, and that's quite a lot. But I will say there was some really major successes at the state capitol. I've never seen so many people at the state capitol advocating on ballot measures before. I have been there for 4 or 5 regular sessions at this point, I think 5 regular sessions, and just the public outreach against these provisions and several others was just such a heartening sign, and they actually were able to get several harmful laws stopped, like a law that would have created a law enforcement agency within the Secretary of State's office. And so advocacy really does make a difference. Yes, there are all these harmful laws that did pass. However, because of so many Arkansans using their voice and speaking out against other harmful provisions, those laws were able to get blocked. And so in terms of ballot advocacy, that was really the high of the session. That's all I've got, and that's quite a lot. If you have any questions, you can find my email address on the Arkansas Advocates website, and I hope to advocate with you in the months and years to come.